All right, I believe we're live. I want to thank everybody for joining us. My name is Jay. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com. And today I'm pleased to announce the funding from the Biden administration. Before he left, he set the last federal budget for housing. The funds have come through. As of today, there's roughly, in counting, I'm going to say in counting at this point, around 300 housing authorities that are now open for business. Okay, that's still a small number, and so I say counting because more and more will be opening. Now, to simplify things for most of you that aren't intimate in the details of housing and vouchers, I'm going to supply a link directly to these open waiting lists. Okay, make no mistake, it's not designed to be easy. You click on it, you get to the website, you're going to have to look for where it says apply. Now, housing authorities can be straightforward and link it up, and other housing authorities make it a little bit hard to find. You may go to a page and then you may find a link to apply about halfway through some of the text they write. And that's because not every housing authority wants to operate ethically. They like to see whether or not they can eliminate part of the crowd just simply by making it difficult to even find the page. Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting that's going to be how it's going to go for you. Let's also discuss a few things before we get the video started. I want to do a few introductions. My name is Jay. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com. We work with around 1,000 clients a year. Constructively, over my 25-year career, I have worked for both nonprofits and I've worked for myself. And what we do is we help people navigate the system. So it's not about purchasing vouchers. It's not about doing anything illegal. Most of the work we do is for law firms and landlords and legal aid societies that will help people with housing, but the other half, the services, working with people that may not have the material knowledge to kind of expedite the process to apply, get through the system, and understand what they're doing. There are lots of options in the open market. We're going to kind of discuss that along with the material topic here, which is the funding and what you should expect. So I'm going to slow down a bit here. I'm going to put a link in the live chat. Now, for those of you watching now, this is going to be live. For those of you watching later on, this will be pre-recorded. It is a live video as of 6/16/2025. It is roughly 10 a.m. Central Standard Time on a Tuesday. That's right, Monday. So right now, for those of you watching, it is live. And for you later, it'll be later. Okay, let's get the link. Now, you guys can ask questions as you wish in the live chat here. Keep in mind that comments made, depending on the complexity of the question, I may not be able to answer it all or in its entirety. If your question includes too many private matters, then this is not a good place to do it in a public format. Okay, I recommend you contact our office. We are by appointment. Okay. Moving from there, in the live chat, we have all kinds of features in there if you like emojis and all that for those of you that are younger. Okay. Also, last couple things. If you like the video, the information, you can like or subscribe to the channel. It's not something that I brought up in many of my videos because I don't really care about that stuff. But if you want to get notifications from YouTube to indicate I'm making further videos, do so. Okay. We've got about 50,000 more people to follow my channel. I've been making these videos for 15 years, and there's a lot of them. There's probably over 1,000. All right, so now we covered all the basics. Let's get into the funding. So every outgoing administration, including those new presidents dealing with the Congress and the House, they set the budgets. Just like when Mr. Trump leaves office, he will set the budget for the next president the first year, okay? So whatever we're going through during the Trump administration, whether it's funding going up or down, he will set the budget for the next president, at least the first year, okay? So we have 4 years to go, basically. Objectively, our channel is not going to be about politics. It's not going to be a political platform to cry about what you like or don't like. It's just about how funding is affected, okay? So the Biden administration's funding was held back. It has now been released. We have a link down there. Again, I'm going to link it one more time for you guys. This is for all the PHAs. They're operating open waiting lists and expecting to open, and we expect hundreds more. There are roughly, we'll give you a round number, around 4,500 housing authorities across the nation. Now, I want to be very clear about something. This is the last voucher party. Current administration doesn't like the program a lot and has decided to make some funding cuts. Most of it doesn't materially affect vouchers. The second warning I'd like to give is we look at how things have kind of played out since February, and it's very clear that most of the cuts are designed to actually cut the fat out the system. So there's a lot of things going up next year, including term limits, which may, if you're not a senior, disabled, or veteran, you may end up in a circumstance where you have to be exited from your voucher within 2 years, if that's passed through Congress. Nobody knows whether they'll pass it or not. And the way they're arguing already, but on both party lines, I have serious doubts that about half the stuff will even pass. Okay, and that also contentiously mean that the current administration has both the House and the Senate in place still. Okay. Beyond that, this funding is you're going to see an explosion of housing authorities opening up. But this is a voucher party. If you're intent on getting a voucher or maintaining one that you have, you better act now. Okay. I'm not going to do fear. I'm not trying to install fear or any other antics with this. Let's just make it very clear there may not be a lot of funding in the next couple of years while we go through a transition through the nation of cutting a lot of systems and funding. Okay, every administration has a plan and they carry through their implementation and the control of that. So I would imagine that the voucher market will remain sustainable and in good condition probably for about a year, maybe a year and a half if they're generous and don't give out every voucher immediately. Okay, so we're going to see some of the better season to get vouchers as we approach the end of summer, and it's going to remain pretty good all the way through about January, February, and March of next year, maybe April, and then you're going to start to see the market decline some. And as we close in on the next summer, next year, you're going to see things tighten up, and then we're going to start to see the totality of all these changes that were made during this current administration as they've entered in February. Okay, what should we expect? Well, a lot of things. But before we get into expectations and my grand opinions, I'm going to address a few of the questions and comments in our live chat. All right, so it says here, Extra says, I am disabled on SSDI, 55 years old, live in Los Angeles, California. Okay. Well, if you live in Los Angeles, you're probably in one of the toughest housing markets for those carrying a voucher that you could potentially be in. So, heart goes out to you, certainly. Flores says, excellent. Well, we appreciate your excellence as well. And then Extra goes on to say, or rather, how do I get a Section 8? Well, your first step would be approaching that link that I put in the live chat comment section, selecting a housing authority, preferably that's in your area, and then submitting an application. They put linkage in applications. Let's talk about applications since you guys don't have a expansive understanding of that. When you go into a website and it says apply here, it means just that. But also, it didn't just mean that. With housing authorities, when you're applying, you need to determine whether or not they have a short or long waiting list and whether or not you actually meet the criteria that are administratively put forth through the housing authority. So when applying any housing authority, you could be applying for project-based housing. You could be applying for everything on their list. So you need to get some clarity as to what you're applying for. And I would tell you guys to steer clear of any housing authority waiting list that is designed to give you project-based housing. Okay, if you cannot get clarity on that, then you need to find out. There are many options out there as far as vouchers, subsidies, and housing. Many of you only understand and know of the voucher, which is the Housing Choice Voucher. There's subsidies. There's Section 202 that addresses seniors with disabilities, where you're living with a landlord, where you're living in a property that's privately owned by a landlord, or you have project-based where the housing authority owns the building and you live there, which is a terrible idea. Then you have the Housing Choice Voucher, where you take a request for tenancy and go out in open market, and then you offer your voucher to anywhere from a subsidy or the housing and low-income housing. So there are many variations of this, and that's not excluding a secondary system on the market, which is a Continuum Care Program, which carries vouchers very similar to rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, and emergency housing vouchers. Now, many of you have heard about emergency housing voucher, and that has many branches as well. Besides permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, and emergency housing, they offer subsidies. And again, under Codependent Regulation Title 24, they offer subsection 202 and 811, VAWA, which is VAWA for domestic violence against women. So in total, if I carried on for about 15 minutes, there's roughly about 128 programs that either give you a voucher, housing, or some form of housing, okay? So it's not just the voucher. And when you apply to housing authority, you need to understand what you're applying for, whether you're qualifying for the preference. So you hear me use that word preference. What preference means is, okay, we have these qualifications for a person. If they match any of these qualifications, qualification meaning preference, then we're going to consider them more important and thus put them higher up on the list. They'll rank higher, okay? The more preference combined, the more preferences with an else that you have, the more opportunity you have to rise even higher on that list. So preferences play a very strong point. And look, in terms of housing, you need to play every angle you can in order to get the type of housing you're going to want. So if you're out there, I got a lot of people contact my office. Hey, Jay, I applied, and that was back in '82. I haven't heard anything. Look, do not hang your hat on one application. Okay, guys, you should be addressing a multitude of housing authorities and hoping and wishing for portability, or you should be applying at both subsidized buildings, tax credit properties, low income, affordable, or even approaching the emergency continuum of care program for their vouchers, which are federally funded as well. And so that's three different angles you can go. If you guys don't understand how all this goes, and I'm talking a little too quick, then you may want to reach out to my office, because to be frank with you, it's like you're branching out, and you get to the branch and you branch out again. There's a lot to understand, okay? But there's very little that you need to understand to do very well with this and be able to cut wait times down. There's lots of different angles that can be played in terms of shortening waiting list times. So back to the original part that I seem to have alluded to, applications. The first application in any housing authority website, whether you do it on their website or you request a paper application, that is what they call that's what they call a pre-application. Pre-applications only require you to create a login, give an email, and then your critical information. Critical means your name, phone number, address, email. Maybe it may ask whether or not you're a senior or veteran, which are two preferences, and that's it. And your income. Now, provided with that information, if they have any interest or vouchers available that match that criteria, they will do a primary application a couple months later, or sometimes very quickly. And during that primary application, that's where they really start to determine what preferences additionally you're going to qualify for. So pre-apps are kind of to screen out all the garbage cases. Oh, my name is Bob, and I'm 21. I don't plan on ever working. I have no good reasons for not working, and I don't like a voucher. Pre-applications eliminate nut cases, okay? You can think of Mr. Trump's plan very similar in the way that he's issued that to Congress. It appears he doesn't want anybody on a voucher greater than 2 years that's not disabled, a senior, or a veteran, okay? And so it follows similar lines, except his approach is more a nationwide instant approach than it would be filtering this out. So I'd certainly agree with both presidents, Biden and Mr. Trump, in terms of this. We're spending half the federal budget giving money away to the housing authority for nonsense. Okay, so half the money ever issued by the government in the last 80 years is being blown. It doesn't support you getting a voucher, housing, a subsidy, anything. And yeah, the system broke. I've said that way before Trump came into office. And it doesn't mean that my saying that means that I'm a fan of Mr. Biden or Mr. Trump. It just means that that's the reality. Now, whether he takes an aggressive approach and the next one may take a passive, I don't know. I do know one thing. The system's always been broke. That's why my job exists. If hundreds, if not thousands, every year contact with homeless, can't even get to the damn application or even get a fundamental idea of how to handle this and get it done in a reasonable amount of time, then we have a problem. Now, admittedly, if the Congress passes next year and says, hey, we're going to put 2-year terms on vouchers, let me tell you something, that'll eliminate 60% of all people off that list. That means 60% of all vouchers that are on the open market or being used within 2 years, all those people, all those vouchers will flow back. That means the waiting list will all of a sudden drop by half. There'll no longer be decade-long waits. It'll be more like a couple of years, a couple of months. And there'll be a lot more vouchers available. There'll be a flood of vouchers going back. Because it isn't worth the time of anybody to jump on a voucher for 2 years. And there's certainly no interest in reapplying through that. So there'll be a tidal wave. There's going to be a couple of things that happen. It's going to create a lot of homelessness for those that may not be disabled, a senior, or a veteran. But it's also going to allow those that need it the most to be able to get it in a reasonable time. So there are ups and downs to this. And I'm sure we all have opinions about it. But again, I'm not going to engage in political innuendo. Okay, I'm not here for that. I support any president that wants to do something. Sometimes I like them half the year. Sometimes I don't like them the next. That's why I don't vote for anybody. All right, let's move on down to comments, and I'll try to address a few there. And then we're going to talk a little bit further about not the political climate, but the expectation of 2025 rolling in 2026. What we should expect, how you should handle the circumstance if you're not a senior and a veteran for the following year. Your best play in the book, in terms of getting vouchers right now, while we have all this funding. The voucher party is only going to last about 12 months. And when that funding dries up, there will not be a reissuance, okay? This administration is not going to do it. All right, so Bald Thanos. Okay, that's definitely an interesting name. Do you understand anything about 811 program? Well, as a consultant, as a Section 8 consulting and dealing with federal programs, yes, in fact, have read all 10,000 pages of federal code, every piece of legislation, policy, procedure. That comment's almost offensive. I want to make something very clear, guys. I'm a consultant. I am not an entertainer. I'm not a party clown for children parties. I'm not like anybody else that makes videos here. I do this for my company, okay? These other people out here, they're expert at fidget spinners and baking cakes one day. Next day, they admit some shit about them being about Section 8. Please don't ask stupid shit like that. I'll put you out the channel. Now, I'm not going to take it personal because I think you meant it honestly, but really, my job is taking 25 years to do. There isn't a single person that's better known in this field, and there certainly isn't anybody out there that's managed to go through 22,000 people, get them housed, and worked 18-hour days for 3 years through, the pandemic, to save people's asses. If I don't know what Section 811 is, 202, 504, then maybe it's time for me to retire. But yes, I know a lot about that, and don't be upset because of my tone. I just want to make that clear. I don't want you guys asking me crazy questions like that. Gets my blood boiling. I mean, I'm here at my own time. You think this damn channel pays me shit? Look, you could go and buy a basket of groceries for what YouTube pays me to make these videos. Yet I've got thousands of hours of this, trying to teach you guys how to get through the system, teaching you about programs and codependent regulation like 811 and 202. It's for your benefit, not mine. There's lots of things I can do with this hour of my day, going back 15 years, So please be respectful. All right, Jim Bennett, your mic is messed up. Well, this microphone will work well. Sometimes it can be weather related. Sometimes my mouth is too far from the speaker. Sometimes you have an old flip phone you borrowed from your mom and it just ain't working today. Sometimes your own internet connection be broke. There's lots of reasons. Just have patience. I'm sure it'll clear up. I don't mind owning it, but look, I can tell you this microphone's about $550. The technology I use, including computers, are around $3,000. Okay, so I can tell you, I did not get the microphone from the dollar store. I didn't do it. Okay, but I will look into it and see if there's any further problem. I imagine it's probably just internet related. All right, Carried Away says, Jay, is there any way to find out what my voucher is worth or how long it will last? Yeah, absolutely. We can find that through you can contact the PHA of the worker. 2, we can do a FOIA request as an open public request, compel the housing authority to give that information, or we can take a federal route and go through HUD or OIG to compel that information from them. As a last resort, we can drag them through court, through arbitration, and then subpoena that information. Now, that's the extreme measure of it, but I'm sure we can get that information a lot easier than that. And I can probably determine about the amount, depending on where you live. Both entities. I have Section 11 Housing Choice Voucher. Okay, so Section 811 housing is tax credit. It is not a housing choice voucher, Mr. Thanos. But I think maybe you're implying you use the voucher at a Section 811 property, possibly. So to be clear, at current, you're not affected. When we do the new federal budget for next year, Thanos, what you may see is there may be a extreme cut of funding in terms of programs that affect certain federal regulations. Like, when we talk about 811 and 202, most of you are kind of familiar with that. That's actual code. It's like tax code. You go into Code of Federal Regulation and Cornell law, you look under that 811 code. It describes a program for 811s, which is adults that are not seniors, that are 18 to 61, that are disabled. And then that property can be mixed use, where you're allowed to be subsidized through the building, and they turn in your application to PHA, which in turn gets it approved by HUD, or you could have used your housing choice voucher at that building. Most 811 and 202 programs will not be affected, which means these low-income, affordable housing, tax credit properties will not be that affected on those 2 programs. Now, those of you that are simply at a regular low-income property or affordable or low-income housing property without 202 or 811, you will be affected. And so there will be some hard decisions on many landlords that own those buildings as to what to do, who to keep. And I can tell you preferentially, the first people to go are going to be the ones that are not disabled, veterans, and seniors, if they do make cuts on your tax credit properties. But do understand one thing. It doesn't matter what this administration does or any. Tax credit programs are an agreement that lasts anywhere from 10 to 50 years. That agreement is, any laws made as of present are not retroactive, which means you cannot go and wipe out funding for something you've already contractually signed off on. So tax credit properties, you enter those agreements for a very long term, which means there's reserve funding part of that, a lot like putting money in escrow. And so while it will affect future results of housing in low income, it's not going to affect likely many landlords that have already entered and engaged in this agreement. The government can't go back on its promises like that, okay? So we'll have to see. I am speculating on the basis of knowledge and my background and experience. We don't know that that's going to play out to be so bad. I think that effectively our bigger concern should be insolvency. Insolvency is when we cut a budget too much, and most of the cuts are designed to be the areas that are profitable for housing authorities. So what we may see is not so many people lose vouchers. We may see more housing authorities become insolvent, go bankrupt. I imagine out of 4,800, probably about 1,000 of them are going to go out of business if we keep the budgeting levels as they stand. Now, again, that's speculation based on an economic outlook going several years, right? We don't even know what's going to happen in terms of Congress and House. All this stuff has to be approved by them. But I can tell you that the funding cuts are not the news right now. I was reading today. Half that shit's a lie. The other half is AI, which is wrong. All the cuts were directed not at specific vouchers. It was all the associated programs around it that never served any great purpose to start with. A lot of them were nonsense. Again, we discussed it. Half that federal budget was blown on stuff that never got people a voucher housing. Everything from rent, block parties, to other obscure programs that didn't do jack. That's where the cuts are actually being made. The news has spun that to strike fear in you guys. And you think that, oh, well, we're losing 60% of funding. Everybody's going to be homeless. That's not true. That's what the news is having you believe. Now, how do I know that? I didn't go read it on Embassy News. I get my reports from a couple places. One, We get the reports directly from the White House, and we looked at the administration's plans as issued by the White House. We went to Congress.com, thehouse.com, and of course, HUD director reports unreleased. I got it there. I don't get my education, training, or wisdom from the fucking news. I don't even believe anything they say. They've all got it wrong. Nobody's actually doing any work to actually research anything. As an example, I read a news article this morning saying there were going to be 60,000 vouchers issued this month. Now, whoever wrote that story should A, be fired, B, they should probably be locked up for committing fraud. You know, everybody's spinning this. They're doing it very carefully so they don't lose their journalistic abilities. When they're spinning this as 60% of the vouchers, it's not 60% of the vouchers. Most of them don't have shit to do with the vouchers. I've had to call a lot of clients because they're reading the news too. Look, guys, you got to stop that. We haven't been able to believe, for the most part, what the news says about anything important for a while. If you don't believe me, every other day on the news, you'll read something that says the word death toll. They can't say 4 people died and passed away. It's a death toll. Anything for shock and awe. This is why I don't read the shit. I read science, I read history, and local events. I don't read anything else on the national line to do with anything with housing funding or anything related to politics because it's just fun. They don't care that they leave people in prison. If you want to subscribe to that kind of shit, go ahead, but I don't do that. I get my reports directly from the government. And I can back my ass up because I'll publish them on the channel, and I have. Okay, so I get my information direct source. All right, so moving on from there, carried away. Seems like my name should be carried away as well. I get carried away in my own videos. Microphone sounds great. Well, thank you. Must be one of those days my microphone is being bipolar. Again, if you're using your mommy's flip phone, you might have a bad connection. RM. I owe back rent for PHA for my current project-based housing. Will this delay me receiving a Section 8 voucher? Well, that can play in a lot of ways. You can get sued. You can get banned for 5 years. It just depends. To be honest with you, RM, I'm not pushing you to call my office about this, but that needs to be addressed because you could end up losing. You got a lot at stake with that. Okay? And I don't know the whole context or the whole story there, but I can tell you when you get in debt, when you indenture yourself to a housing authority, this is why I tell you guys, don't ever go to the housing authority and request a voucher and also make them your landlord, because what you do is you indenture yourself on a cotton plantation. They're now not only the person to control your voucher, they control your housing. Any complaint you make to bother Bob and Sally that run that office, they'll put your ass out. You see my point? Don't ever give the housing authority that kind of power. You're smart, RM, from trying to get a voucher and get out. If you're lucky, get out of their jurisdiction. But you need to address that word. Well, if they spin that narrative on you, you could end up with a lot of problems. Okay. Black Roses. Man, we got some real gloomy names today. Jesus. Well, Black Roses, I assume that you like Black Roses. I'm 66 years old, SSI, disabled. I have a Section 8 voucher. I live in Connecticut. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about a damn thing, honey. You're a senior. You're on SSI. You're retired. These cuts do not affect you, so don't worry about it. Okay? If you want to be entertained, hang around for a little bit. I'll have something funny to say. And I was only being lighthearted when I said Black Roses was gloomy. Okay? I just meant it just seemed a bit intense as a name. I'm sure you have a logical reason for that. All right, guys. So moving on from today, I would tell most of you just don't read the news, man. I made a whole video about that, and I actually pulled up the White House report and Congress report and disproved every national agency. Let me tell you why they're so long. They're using AI now. AI doesn't have to get the approval of anybody. It just writes spin stories, and it does it automatically. And the basis of the information is it's very simple. AI is going to take the majority vote of what's on the internet and then spin a story from that. If people out there spend too much, then a lie could actually become a possibility, and the AI believes that lie. You see the problem with AI? It's unregulated and it's unchecked. And so this is what we're seeing. If enough people start breathing bullshit and making stories about it, AI will in turn believe that's a reality, and it will spin that article thinking that's reality, because how could that many people be wrong? Well, it's really easy to be wrong about this stuff. Hell, I've even been wrong. I've been admittedly wrong about some issues. Like this year and this administration, I was dead wrong about the policies. And I was dead right about a lot of the different things. A lot of people said I was going to be a fear monger. I was concerned there was going to be big changes, and it sure shit happened. I know a lot of people definitely ate their words on that one. That complained, oh man, you're just saying that. No, I was dead right. Okay, it didn't take a lot of foresight to know that. But I was dead wrong in many respects as well. That's what it's called to be human. You know, it's a lot like the weather. I'm trying to be a fortune teller in some cases to see if we can kind of hit the nail on the head. All right. Cadden News says, hey, I was in SRO housing. For those that don't know, SRO is single room occupancy. It's a very popular type of housing. Well, I shouldn't say it's popular and people enjoy it, but it's something you see a lot throughout New York, San Francisco, and LA. So he goes on to say, you're in SRO housing. See if I can find it again. In North Cali. How do you feel about Senator Pelosi getting locked up? Well, you know, I'm not really, to remain impartial, I don't have an opinion in terms of senators getting locked up. If she broke the law and it's sustainable, then he or she did the wrong thing. Okay. I know there's a lot of strong emotions through this administration. I know that people are trying to reach their goals, and there are big changes happening. And so this is what America voted for this term, and whether we like it or not, whether you like it or not, or it's just the way things go. And people, you cannot break the law. You know, there's a lot of things I may not necessarily agree with personally, but I'm not going to share that in this video because my job is to be an impartial role in Section 8 housing. So, and I want to serve both Democrats, Republicans, independents, and even those of you that are batshit crazy, as long as you still have enough of your faculties left. Okay, I don't mind serving everybody, so I don't really have an opinion. If you break the law, you get arrested. If you don't, you don't. Sometimes things are motivated by politics. Sometimes they're not. I'm not really into that. I got my days long enough without figuring out what the hell they do in the White House and whether or not it's Democrats or rioters or taking down the city or if it's all bullshit. I just look, guys. My concern is housing, you know, and regardless of the party line, as long as they support something that helps my seniors, my veterans, get their housing, then I'm all in, all out. All right, so Chuck Lunch. Another interesting name, Chuck Lunch. Well, apparently Chuck likes lunch. I can agree with him. Parts of North Carolina is having problems with a shortfall. Well, it might be filled in with the new federal funding. I think we're going to start to see a lot more activity through this year. I think that a lot of you thought this was all going to end in a big bang. And here we are. We've got a nice lifeline. That's all it is. It's a 12-month, probably about a 12-month lifeline. This funding. You got to make the best of it, guys. You know, I'm working with as little as I can. And even though I've been in this quarter century, even I'm struggling to keep the rapid pace of what's happening. Okay. I do know one thing, and I will share this, and this is a personal opinion. Our country's in a lot of debt. Okay. 34 trillion. The interest alone is unpayable. If we're not careful as a country, we can become bankrupt. We can lose our credit rating status. We can lose a lot of things. Okay. There may be a time in the future we may have to be in the world peacekeeper because this is what's causing all this debt. We're having to develop more and more and spend more and more in this budget, $1 trillion wars and all that. We can't do that shit anymore. You know, we now owe more than America makes. And if we're not careful, we could end up in a third world country. But worse than that, we could suffer huge inflation. We've just seen our first sampling of that. I want America to remain another couple hundred years, but if we don't start solving real debt and making drastic changes, then it's just like climate change. It will spin out of control. We can't continue to print money forever. It has to be based on something, okay? I want to think about that. This is not my ticket to say I support Trump or not. I'm just saying that we need to look at the overall issue. Without this money, there won't be housing. Okay, so some presidents, some of the future presidents may elect to do the same thing. We may very well, and I warned y'all 5 years ago, that we may see an entire change of the system. It hasn't worked very well in the last 80 years, and what we're seeing is we're on the fringe edge of it possibly losing it. Now, what does that really mean? It means that we need to reevaluate Section 8 in housing, and we need to simplify this. We need to remove the control of housing authorities, and we need to put this under the feds, okay? So people can be treated with dignity and respect. And quit letting the housing authorities monetize this. We're losing half the budget. We need to make some very careful decisions. We need to simplify the system so even grandma at 99 can be able to get through it. I should not exist. This should have never carried on. The system should have never been allowed to carry on. Do you know this current administration eliminated 90% of the HUD's website? It was millions of pages of irrelevant information links. It was like it was done by a child. It was bad. 90% of the website's gone. It was all just useless garbage. Over bloated. I mean, how big HUD had the largest website on the planet? I mean, it was millions of pages. It was absurd. So anything, I support anything at this point that will give us a system that actually works properly, that's reasonable and fair, and that's not being addressed by housing authorities that are hiring prostitutes to answer the phone, okay? I'm always rough on PHAs because a lot of them are bad, but many of them are good. The ones that are good, I've certainly given them all the accolades in the world. They're filled with professionals, and they treat people with dignity and respect, but there's so many bad ones. We watched 9 housing authorities in insolvent last year from fraud. Stole every fucking nickel in the building. And HUD couldn't catch because they don't have enough staff, so it wasn't until there was no money left that they actually caught them, had to storm the door, arrest everybody, and then those employees got what we famously call in this channel Section 9, not Section 8. Section 9 is 3 hots and a cot in a federal prison. You get a 30-year lease with no key. So if you want Section 9, commit fraud. All right, moving on from there. Pamela Foster, is it normal to be requested to recertify again just a few months after moving into a new unit? Well, yes, because recertification has a lot to do with standardizing rents. When you move into a different building, you got to rewrite the contract. So that's just a technical issue. So it is. Don't worry, Pamela. It doesn't mean the housing authority's on a witch hunt to get you, but they need to rewrite the contract when you move around, okay? Things do materially change, and so that's quite appropriate. Sheila Dean goes on to say, Miami is a very big problem in Section 8 housing. Look, Miami is a record setter. Do you realize 2 years ago, the city of Miami opened up the Housing Choice Voucher waiting list? Do you know roughly 26.1% of the population of the city of Miami applied for a voucher? That is 1/4 of the population for Miami. And no, look, even in places like Detroit or New York or San Francisco, don't ever reach 25% of the population. Miami's got an epic problem. And it ain't just Miami. It's Fort Lauderdale. It's throughout Florida. And let me tell you, you got an older tax base that has been flooding that state now for 100 years, it seems like. And what's happening in the state of California is duplicating itself right there in Florida. Now, I understand there's contrast difference of Democrats in California and Republicans in Florida, but I'm watching a mirror change. Same exact thing is playing out in Florida. Everybody's low income. The senior is being basically priced out of the state. Florida is now on my shit list, in my opinion, in terms of putting people there. Now, it's not the whole state. It's mostly the southern part. And it's not because people are Republican. I'm just saying that it's the rich are taking over, and those that don't own fixed incomes, it's not affordable anymore. In my home state of Texas, well, eventually that domino will fall too in the next 10 years. It'll become unaffordable because people tend to flock to where it's both warm and affordable. Well, the day of that being the case for Florida is over. Now, that's speculation. I'm not an economist, okay? So if anybody wants to hit me over the head for playing economist in my own video, then go ahead. I deserve it. Sheila Neal, I'm 61 years old, disabled, and I stay in a senior building. Rent goes up every 6 to 8 months. Rents can only go up if you're in a fixed income, if the landlord requests it through the PHA. That means that housing authority is allowing that. And so you're going to want to look into that, because at the current pace they're going with you, Sheila, you won't be able to live there the next lease. And so that's all appears to be kind of an inside circumstance where possibly management's pushing to get everybody out with low income, drop the building on the market, and then resell it. Don't think the housing authority don't cooperate with landlords. They do. Let me tell you why. Give you a good example. These housing authorities, when they deal with a landlord that comes in and has a property to rent to a person who has a voucher, they make that landlord wait till the last minute in a housing quality inspection to tell them how much rent they're going to pay. Okay, for their property. Now, do you think the housing authority, when it buys a building and makes project, do you think they make their self wait for housing quality inspection? No. They're able to sit there and pay their self the maximum amount for their own buildings. Now, remember, the housing authority is usually privately owned, except in the big cities. So they favor their self and they screw all the landlords. So recently, what I've been doing with landlords is we're just sue their ass. I want them to produce documentation for every single building they bought. And if they're paying themselves at a higher rate for each building with project-based housing, then you're going to get sued now, because you cannot favor yourself. They're non-partial, self-servicing to profit themselves by stealing federal funds, by maxing out the rent payments for their project base they own, and then giving the doghouse to the landlords. And so, oh, well, the rent standard says $2,000. We're only going to offer you $1,000. That's all we can afford, because we're paying ourselves too much for our own buildings. So, yep, my new philosophy with all landlords I deal with, we're just suing now. And once we subpoena that information, then you can bet your ass it's all going to go downhill from there. At city attorney or not, I don't care if you're the city of whatever, you'll get sued. Bill D, I just got my voucher. Is there anything available to help with deposit and moving costs? Well, at the federal level, not really, unless you're a veteran. You're going to want to check with your state agencies for that. Unfortunately, the government's very clear about offering full welfare, which means whole solutions. Whole solutions means paying all of your rent or be inclusive of a lot of additional things. However, Bill, if you had gotten an emergency housing voucher, there might have been some additional help. So you're going to want to probably key that in at state level. I don't advise the state level vouchers or program, but I do know there's funding out there for that. Sometimes you have to join the church for a couple of months to get them to, help you out. It's always funny how the church is always there for you at your lowest moment. All right, carried away. That's why I'm empathetically watching your videos, scared to death. I'm going, guys, you don't need to be scared. I spent all these videos. You seniors, y'all like to work me out emotionally. Look, you don't need to be scared. I've said it like 1,000 times in 20 videos. You're not affected by any of this stuff. You don't need to be scared. Now, I understand why Carried Away is bringing that up. There is a potential that I'm sharing opinion, the potential thought process there, Carried Away. It doesn't mean you guys take everything in extreme context. Please don't, okay? Matter of fact, Carried Away, I would advise just give them a homeless call. I could probably dispel most of the concerns that you have, okay? It's just that we need to look at all options. We need to be real with ourselves. Sometimes we get unfavorable answers, but I don't want you to go in and have a sleepless night over this, okay? Nothing in the system works that quick where you're destroyed, okay? Please don't. All right, you make me feel bad. I'm worried about you now for sure. One thing I do more than most consultants is I empathize deeply with a lot of you. Let me tell you one additional thing before I wrap this video up. For those that don't constructively believe that I may not care, I spent from 26 to about 16 to 26, 10 years. So that'd be 1 decade on the street. Lived in probably 13 homeless shelters. So no man or woman or child in this channel can tell me I don't know the system from the beginning to the end. Okay? I made an entire video about that. I slept in a house that had dog shit in it, no power, nothing in the middle of winter. I know lots about it. I'm not just some monotone, middle-aged white dude that don't know shit about hard times. I know it better than most of you. Okay? I've ate the same stale honey buns, rebaked pizza, and trash they serve in shelter. I know all about these things. Okay. Maybe the difference is all these years have passed. I have walked a mile in everybody's shoes, and I've been through the system, even had a voucher, been through COC as well. What do you think gives me that intimate knowledge? Why do you guys think I get upset in my own videos when we discuss topics that are sensitive to both the emotional and intelligence, to your emotional and to both your, I'm getting tongue tied in both emotional and regular senses. And that's because I sympathize directly with the plight. I understand fear. Fear is a lack of understanding, and I'm trying to provide that as best I can. Or you got the other option. There are about 10 other channels that copy everything that I do, especially the last couple of years. And they've never had a policy, procedure, data manual, administrative plan, federal code, Title 24, any Cornell law, none of that. They get on here, you get a toy microphone. They get a toy microphone. They get a grandma's flashlight, and they play scary clown to give advice. Okay? This is what YouTube's built with. Party, little clowns. It's not everybody, but I'm saying everybody has a right to make a video. But look, if you don't know anything about the system, please don't give people advice. All right. So, Chief Nichols, how do I reach out to you? We post all of our company information, including our office, phone numbers, emails, everything there, even appointments, in the description and the comment section. So you can find it all over. You can find it through our website. You can find it through our booking software. I will link you guys up here right now. By the way, let's go back to this open waiting list. Use this, guys. Save yourself some time. Open waiting list. There's 300 and counting housing authorities accepting applications right now. The more you apply for, the better you're going to do. I'm going to be back tomorrow because I intend on driving. You know what? Maybe you're not motivated. I'm going to motivate a lot of you guys this week. I'm going to push you guys hard. A lot of the videos this week will be related to getting applications in and moving your ass. Because look, there's no crying. You're not going to be able to cry in your beer a year from now when shit gets tough. If you don't do something now, then you're stuck until there are different changes in place. This is the last volley of money. This is the end of the end until the next administration, okay? So I want you to stop drowning and try to save yourself a bit, okay? Instead of being scared, I want you to get mad and start fighting, okay? We need to think in a different way. It's when we do our best, when you go from fear, the problem with terrorizing people that don't have a lot is eventually if you make them mad enough, then they'll start fighting. That's the danger of this. I'm trying to push you folks that are scared and may not want to get out there and do anything about your circumstance. Once you get mad about it, then there's no stopping you. That's most humans. We're built that way. If I can get you hot enough, then maybe we can get you out there and see if we can get you in the housing. You got 1 year on the clock. Next February, it's over with. We'll have to see what happens after that. Okay? I've got faith that all of you can do it. Keep yourself first. Think about yourself, your families, your children, your grandchildren. All of you deserve better. And I want to tell you one thing in closing before I go. One last thing. You are an American. You worked all your life for your money. You pay taxes like every red-blooded American in this country. The same way that you're not ashamed to go collect your Social Security check should be the same way you shouldn't be ashamed of entering the system. This is a privilege that is granted as a right to all Americans. It doesn't make you any better or any less. Okay? It is an absolute right. This is not about being shamed. In no time should any senior or disabled person be ashamed of having to utilize housing. You paid your fucking taxes, then you have every right. You have the option to exercise this option for housing. Okay? The news has spun this like people are monsters and criminals, but it's not true. So every one of you that's a senior and a veteran and disabled, don't ever let these fucking people shame you. Don't worry about NBC, Fox News, or Yahoo News, or any of them, CNN. Don't let these people fucking shame you out of your right. You paid just like everybody else. You have the right to exercise that fucking option. I dare these people sit here and make you into some type of criminal, low rent. You know, you worked all your life for this nation. It's the same as serving it. You worked all your life, honestly. You paid your taxes, exercise your rights. You do it with pride. Now, if you're going to go out here and you have no incentive in life, and you're only able to work an hour at McDonald's because you fucked your life up, then that's your problem. You don't need to be in the system. I'm not going to help frauds. Okay, you're 18 and you got no incentive, and all you can do is smoke a joint and sit around your grandma's house. I'm not going to help you. I'll hang up on your ass. I don't have time for fools. But for all of you that are grown, that have put your time and your dues in, you exercise your right and you do it without shame. I'm serious about that. I believe that we as a nation would shame any fucking person for exercising the right they're granted. It came right along with freedom. It came just as easily as a Social Security check. I don't watch anybody go out there in the middle at 2 a.m. collect a Social Security check. Then why the fuck are people worried about how they look on a voucher? Because of the news. You know what's worse than politics as a whole? The news. It's done so many things. Why do you think people are so prejudicial and have there's so many prejudicial behavior behind vouchers in the assumption that African Americans or black people are somehow the cause of this and that, the vouchers, but yet white folks are the primary user as well. Same with food stamp, because the news loves to seed prejudicial behavior. It favors which will gobble up. I'm asking you guys to think of this as a human being, whether you're Democrat or Republican, to support each other in the system to get through it and not be ashamed of it. Forget, just put your politics, your religion, all that other stuff, put it on the back burner. And just focus on this as a person so you can be treated with dignity and exercise your right to housing. Okay, that's the last thing I've got to say. If you don't understand what I'm saying, then you're not ready. You're not ready. You haven't fully grown up. Maybe you lack the intellect, but I think most of you do. That's what it means to be a human. That's what it means to be out here on earth. Caring for people and exercising your rights. That was your ticket to be in this country. Maybe we should put it on the ballot. If you're not going to exercise your rights in this country and not work, then maybe you don't need to be here. You know, this is not a free ticket. Period. We all have to do what we need to do to make this country run. If the rest of the world wants our money, right? We're out here buying Gucci and everything else. If they want our fucking money, then maybe they need to work for it. No free rides. All right, guys. I love you guys. And I hope to see you again tomorrow. We'll do it again at 10 a.m. And I sure can tell you, it's going to be nothing but fire and spice. So you might want to pray a little bit. You may not like the profanities. And I'm going to repeat one thing. Do not attempt to shame me in my channel about the use of language or anything else. I'll put you out. I will talk how this is my channel. I'll speak how I wish. If you struggle with hearing the truth and you need somebody to talk in a way that sugarcoats it, this is not the channel for you. You need to go down to Lovely Rose's channel. They'll lie to you. We as adults need to be able to accept the truth in any reality. Okay? And sometimes you may not like the shit I have to say. Sometimes you will. But you need to understand, all of you need to understand the gravity of the situation. We're all grown people. Okay? I want to help you guys. I want to help you beat a system that's designed against you. But it requires you being able to not be like a little school child and get offended at every little damn thing. You don't talk like adults so we can handle this. Because if you find me offensive, you're really going to be offended when Sally and Bob at the Housing Authority treat you like a hooker on 3rd Street, talk to you like trash, try to burn you at every turn. And so you're in for a real shock. This is the warm-up party. You ain't even seen of me until you dealt with the housing authorities. So that's the thing, preparing you for a little bit of war. And if you guys know anything about me, I love to make war. We do it all the time with lawyers. We make war with lots of housing authorities, lots of landlords, and sometimes tenants. I serve anybody that will service that has an honest case. What we don't do is engage in fraud. I'm out here to sell vouchers and bullshit, okay? I help anybody that wants it and has a spirit to carry through it, but I'm not going to help you guys sit here and commit fraud further. Because, again, there are taxpayers here, and if you want to be in this nation and you want to serve this country truly, then you need to be honest. Okay? I ain't going to deal with liars. All right, guys. Well, I've enjoyed talking with you, and I'm going to bring in another cat next video. I know many of you are pet lovers, and I don't just try to rescue and house people. I'm well known for picking up stray cats, damaged cats, abused cats, so on. So we tried to introduce a few of those cats. They've been playing an important role in my life and many others, and I think we join the same. My cats are not part of these videos to bring you guys in. It's not a ploy or a game. These are real life rescue cases, and we bring them in. Why not? Why not a little bit of action? Not everything's got to be serious in Section 8. And again, it's my channel. If I want to share a little bit of my personal, then I don't see objectively how that's a problem. If you have a problem with it, hey, unsubscribe, find somebody else, right? All right, have a great day, guys.